let's focus on positive stuff. We can do a lot of writing new music.
It is great to have today's guest back on the podcast. One of my favorite people. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and we are talking today with Olivier Babaz, who recently released a course with Discover Double Bass, another course. This one's titled The Creative Improvisor. I've been a fan of his for years. I had him on the podcast, maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, something like that, and it's great to reconnect and talk about not only this course, but I was actually over in the UK filming a course for Discover Double Bass in January. So we start off this conversation talking about our shared experiences working with Jeff Chalmers and the team at Discover Double Bass. Very, very cool. We also get into using iPads creatively for music, which is something I've been really into. I love Olivier's thoughts on that. Olivier's live streams, his creative flow, and much more. Definitely follow along with what this unique artist is doing. And without further ado, let's bring you Olivier Babaz and a couple of clips from one of the videos from his most recent Discover Double Bass course, The Creative Improvisor. How are you, friend?
I'm very fine. Thanks, Jason. It's great to see you.
I know. Great to see you too. Wow. I've been enjoying watching some of your live streams that you've been doing. It's really cool. You seem very fluent in terms of the flow and everything. That seems like a great way to keep yourself keep yourself artistically engaged.
Yeah, that's kind of, before this whole thing happened, I had a few of those nights where there were not really shows per se, but there were more like public research sessions stuff. I had a few of them booked, and so I just decided to move them online, which happened to work quite well for that kind of stuff. But yeah, we had to adapt a lot, of course.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's fun. I mean, so much of the solo stuff you do, it sort of lends itself to that a lot of people are trying to figure out how to make music by themselves if they're not used to that. But with kalimba and everything you do, it's been fun following along.
Oh, but thanks, Jason. Nice. It's nice to know that people are following. Thanks.
And I was in England right after you. You were over there shooting your course like, was it early January that you were over there or something like that?
Yeah, it was really early January. So yeah, I think I left UK around the 13th or something. So we really crossed paths at this point.
Well, and this is well, I love what you've done already for them, in addition to what you do in general. But that bowing course you did, that jazz bowing course, I still use elements of that with some of my students. Just some of those like chops, and I've been practicing myself. And who knows when I'll get the chance to test some of that out in public. But that has been so fun. And then I've been digging into, actually right here on my iPad, I've been going through your latest course, and I've been practicing some of the like spaced, the modal improvisations and stuff like that. And I was thinking about you a lot especially when I was in the UK, because I was playing on the bass you were playing on, and just thinking about the whole preparation process for doing a course. So like for me, I was doing this beginner course, and I had actually shot a beginner course before that. There's a funny story behind it that I can tell you another time, but I had sort of already done this, so I built a more elaborate version for Discover Double Bass. But I was thinking about you and what you do and just the improvisatory nature of it. And so like in terms of the course you were doing, how much of it had you come up with before you got to England? Were you kind of creating it on the spot, or like how did that whole process work?
It's basically, I'm not the only one doing that, but it's basically an approach to improvisation that's not only grounded in jazz. Mm-hmm. So it's more a little more open approach to improvisation, and maybe, and it's lots part of what I teach to my students here in Montreal, and as well in my workshops. So it's it's a material that I'm already familiar with when I work with Jeff for Discover Double Bass, but to fit it to the format they have, which is a long form video course, 5-6 hours of stuff. Yeah, there's quite an extensive process of figuring out a way to put it in form, which is not too systematic, so people don't get lost into too many details, but at the same time, that is very structured. But it's quite a challenge pedagogically, as you probably know, and as you as a teacher know the challenge of that. But I all the concepts are down on paper before recording them, but all the examples and all the technical, very specific material is, of course, improvised on the spot, as it's an improvisation course, of course.
It's cool to the way in which the Jeff and the whole team over there do the transcriptions is great, because it is exactly what you did, and I know, and so it's neat to have that, especially like me with my classical primarily background. You know, I love to actually see the music. You know, I mean, I would love to just learn a riff or an example off of you just from the video, but it's nice to have that in paper, and so it's been really fun for me. I have really enjoyed going through what all the stuff that you've done so far. So it's actually every afternoon I break out my iPad and I've got all your musical examples on here, and then I do like split screen on the iPad. So I've got the sheet music there, and then I've got you on the video. So even though we're talking now, I feel like you've been talking to me for the last couple of weeks.
Cool. Maybe I get more hair and more beer now. But yeah, thanks, man, for the support. Yeah, it's I mean, they are doing, I mean, as it comes to production, and you were talking about transcription, and they're, I mean, Discover Double Bass, they are really putting the bar really high. If you just take the example of transcription, it's really, really very good work, and it's quite hard because I mean, I don't know for the other teachers how much of their material is written before, but for me, I've got, of course, the main concept I want to talk about that's in my head, but I don't write my examples of course, improvisations and riffs. So it's really a huge work of production, and props to them. They're really doing a great job. I mean, it's really great.
Yeah, it's as high end in terms of the production value as I can really imagine. Just in terms of having the multiple cameras and the one camera on the Ronin coming in on you. And I know we were shooting just a few weeks apart, so their setup has evolved, but we were getting the same experience, and it's really interesting. And also because I know that you've done so many workshops on the content. How different does it feel doing it in front of the multiple cameras? Like, I was thinking about that with what I was doing, because I've talked about these basic concepts I was doing, but it really is different, like talking into the lens and trying to like how is it different trying to present in the format, you know, week long, you know, going through that? It can be very intimidating, really, especially in a dark studio, very big room and everything. It can be really intimidating, but I mean, for me, it all comes down to preparation. It's just being able to speak fluently about the music, and the real difficulty is not having any feedback from some bass player or some multiple or more than one of them, and this is really what makes and that's where the improvisation process is interesting, as it's really not, I mean, in my case, I'm really not demonstrating something theoretically. I'm really applying to myself on the spot what I'm talking about as it comes to improvisation. If I'm talking about
I don't know, a mode or a rhythmic system of improvisation. I'm not like reading an exercise illustrating that. I'm improvising one. So there's as well a musical challenge because, of course, I have to be. Yeah, it's honestly, it's a lot of preparation, but it's great. It's great to work in those conditions. The sound is great. I mean, the production, the video prod level is really very high. So yeah, it's quite challenging, but it's very, very nice to do. It's another way to communicate through music. It's really nice.
It's really interesting. It was fun. I always love hearing how people prepare for something like that, which it is demanding, doing that. For me, I wrote everything out that I thought I was going to do on my iPad, and unlike what you were doing, mine was, I knew exactly what I was going to be presenting in terms of the music, and I'd worked on it, but I would go through and revise it, and making scribbles on my iPad and that kind of thing. And then every day when I was in England, I'd wake up and I'd go down and have breakfast, and probably we had similar breakfasts because I think we were staying at the same place even. And I would do a walk along the canal or the river, a little bit, kind of clear my head. And then I would just like go and look through what I was going to do that day and sort of just kind of get in the right headspace for it. And it worked great for me because mornings are usually when I'm at my freshest creatively. And how is that for you? Because as someone who you gig a lot more than I do when we're not in a pandemic. So you're used to, being out playing at night. Are mornings good times for you creatively, or like, what's your creative flow typically like?
More and more I'm playing. I mean, if we're not talking about the whole stop of the music scene here, I'm not playing so late shows anymore. I'm not like getting back at home at 3 or 4 in the morning. I don't know why, but somehow it just doesn't happen or work this way anymore. Generally, these are jazz gigs. So let's say at maybe 12 at 11:30 or 12, everything's done. So I'm lucky to live downtown in Montreal. So generally I don't have such a. It's not an. For me, it's not an extreme jazz lifestyle. I can wake up quite early. I can wake up at 7 something. And and like you, the morning are the best moments. I have my stuff that I do for my family and everything, but after that, you never have a rehearsal that starts before 10 generally. For me, the rehearsal. And I'm very lucky to have a nice studio, which is not really big, but which is enough to have rehearsal at my place. So that makes a huge difference as well. So that I can work, of course, from home, but I can have acoustic rehearsals here, which are really nice.
That makes such a difference, being able to do that in your own space. Yeah, rather than, especially as a bass player and hauling, various things. That's really cool.
Yes, absolutely. It's really a very, very nice thing. But for heavy stuff and for a lot of projects, of course, I travel everywhere in town. But otherwise, morning are really the favorite moments. Yeah, sure. And nights, actually, for example, to listen to records. There's nothing better than lying in bed with the headphones, like I did when I was 14 years old, trying to get back to that bubble.
What do you listen to these days? Like with those headphones on in the morning? I love that image. Like what is it? I'm sure your interests are wide and varied, but who are you listening to?
Recently, I'm really binge listening to traditional Irish fiddlers, and particularly to a guy named Kevin Burke, a great violin player from Ireland. I don't know why. I crossed paths with this musician, listening to it, and I'm really he's one of the greatest Irish fiddlers. But it's really I'm really drawn to that kind of sound. These and a lot of a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm listening a lot to electronic music and to a lot of synth stuff. I love synthesizers. So I'm listening to a lot. There's a great Spanish pianist living in Belgium that's called Marc Melia, who has done 2 albums. Let's keep on those 2 examples. Kevin Burke, great Irish fiddler and composer of an electronic music, which is called Marc Melia. I love these 2 guys. Yeah.
Wow.
And jazz and plenty of stuff. It's actually great to be home and to check shows, live shows. I catched a live show from Avishai Cohen. I mean, it was beautiful. It was really great. A Facebook Live a few weeks ago. It was really nice.
Well, it's been fun for me to, I love electronic music and explore. And I mean, for years, I used to teach a course on Ableton Live, and I still lose. I've actually because I've just been home so much. I've been experimenting with Ableton Live and my bass, which I rarely do, but I've been creating looping and I've been really into the last couple of years doing music production exclusively on my iPad Pro. There's something about that the limiting factor of it, it's like I can't do everything on it, but I can do different things on it. And I've been starting to bring that in to Ableton Live as well. And I've been creating it's been really fun. I never really, I just sort of like improvise and then the moment passes. I rarely even record it, but there's something really creatively interesting. I'll wake up in 6 a.m. or something, and the sun's just coming up, and I'm getting I'm wiring all these different apps on my iPad together using Audio Bus, and it's just I don't know. There's something about that being someone who's primarily an acoustic player, right? Like for me and for you, in many regards of what you do, that you have the sounds of your bass, and there are so many sounds, but it's so interesting to get into the electronic world where you can create literally anything. I just that artistic freedom is just so interesting to me.
That's you're saying something very interesting about the iPad factor. You said it's really interesting to use the limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Were you talking compared to a computer? I guess
exactly.
That's great. Yeah, I don't especially use iPad, but I can totally relate to that concept of not limiting yourself on purpose, but using tools that's like the bass itself, of course, but using tools that have certain limitations and working around them is where the great ideas come from. I mean, and after that, you have to work to develop them and to make them work really well. But it's quite interesting and not very surprising that using an iPad instead of a big music computer brings some new ideas and really helps.
There's something, and in more normal times, the portability of it, I love. I'll sometimes go out in the city, not these last couple of months, but typically I'll go out to a park or something here in San Francisco, and I'll just get out the iPad and I'll start creating some things. And there's something about just using my fingers, like as opposed to a keyboard or something like that. There's just something really organic's probably the wrong word because it's an iPad, but there's just something that like taps into that my creative energies that I find really interesting.
Right. That's because the relationship between computer and the music production is of course very strong, but when you can get a little outside of the computer world, and the iPad can be an alternative, some keyboards can be, or any kind of, but if you can be not too drawn into the computer, it's a great way to have new ideas and develop those navigation of limitations.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great title.
No, I love it. It's funny because I actually our interview is turning into an iPad commercial on my end, but I use it also. I find it really helpful for like writing, like actual like writing blog posts or that sort of thing. And the pencil, like I go out with the iPad and the Apple Pencil, and I start like sketching out mind maps and stuff like that. And it's interesting. And this I don't, again, like everybody, I'm not doing that these days, but typically I would try to one day a week leave my house just with my iPad and like a battery charger so I don't run out of power, and walk around the city, and I would like write some, like some text. I'd write some blog posts, or I'd sketch out some ideas, or I'd break out those music apps I was talking about. And that was like my change it up day. It would usually be a Friday. Fridays I just go out and I just do something totally different, get out of my house, get away from my base. And I've come up with so many good ideas just like getting out. Although I love being at home, actually. I like to have the option to leave my home, but I do like being at home, and I find it a really creative and productive environment. But that getting that variety and that spice, I found really helpful.
That's pretty cool. You'd love to walk around town with a kalimba as well. That's perfect.
Oh man, yeah.
That's the most easy stuff to transport. You can really, it's very small, it's cute, and it's not so loud, but you can still have like maybe 1.5 octaves or 2 octaves of a micro piano. I really love to just walk around and carry those out, even if I'm not out on a gig or anything. Yeah, anyway, I totally understand the portability thing, and the fact that being outside is really infusing a different kind of energy in ourselves. I mean, it's definitely the case now that, I love being here and working from home, but honestly, I would really rather go out and have another kind of energy entering. It's like when you're practicing, after certain points, you really need, except I'm talking about technical stuff. I'm not talking about repertoire. I'm more talking about if you're working on about something technical. Right hand, left hand, whatever, pitch or bow technique. At one point, you really need to have an external music input to cheer up and to give you more energy. So I don't know. At one point, I really just need to go transcribe something on the piano or get some other external stuff. You know what I mean? Fueling my.
I know. I know exactly what you mean. I'm feeling that too after this is entering many months of being locked at home here. Boy, do I miss going to SF Jazz here in town, or going to see live music, or just get some of that external. For me, typically I'm on the road a pretty decent amount, and I get so much energy going to different cities and seeing and being a part of things, and I feel like that. And so it's been interesting being home and having it be much more I guess I'm spending a lot more time alone with my thoughts than I'm used to. But like you were mentioning also, it is interesting to see what musicians are doing online, live, and I am drawing inspiration from people still, and I'm definitely exploring things that I wouldn't have been were I in Chicago for a week, in all the other places I was planning on being.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's great. Really, really nice. Yeah, traveling. It will come back soon.
Well, luckily for much of what you do, you're working in smaller ensembles, typically, probably smaller audiences. Talking to some of my friends in the orchestra world, and I don't want to bum out anybody who's listening, but those are the things that are tougher, because those are a little more like sporting events, where you've got 100 people on stage, thousands of people, but.
Yeah. This is kind of frightening. We'll see how it goes. Everybody is kind of in the mist here, especially in North America. In Europe, everybody's beginning to take new marks and see how stuff are unfolding. We are still, as it comes to, I don't know the situation in your house, but in your city, but here it's still, we kind of really pay attention still, and we're not on the edge of opening cafes and bars and jazz clubs. Not yet. I mean, all the festivals of the summer are canceled, and I mean, let's focus on positive stuff. We can do a lot of writing new music, and I'm very, very fortunate to. My wife is actually one of my fellow musicians. So she's a viola player, and we have a duet, so we could write some new music and rehearse it. We're kind of lucky at this point.
That's great. My wife's a radiologist, but we met in music school, and she's a harpist. And with all this found time, I can see the harp right over there, and she's been practicing the harp more and getting back into it. So the last time we played together was 2016, I think, or maybe 2017. We'll do some more playing together again soon. It's nice to have a musical collaborator in the household for sure.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So here, I was curious about how things are in Montreal, because I know you're not that close to New York City, but I know that it's been really rough in New York and New Jersey here in the States. Here in California, especially San Francisco, the Bay Area, we're one of the first places to completely shelter in place. So, and things are starting to open up, but incredibly slowly here. But also the infection rates, I think we've gone 2 days without having any new cases in the Bay Area, or maybe it was just San Francisco. No, I think it was the whole Bay Area. So that's positive news. But yeah, it's slow going for sure. But I'm guessing it's similar in Montreal.
Montreal seems to be a little problematic. As it comes to Canada, it's the most touched city. No, we're kind of we're definitely on the declining side of this whole thing. But everything is closed down. And Canada did pretty good. But Montreal was really the weak point for the whole Canada, and we still have some quite serious cases. We're not unlocking things anymore. Quite near. I think the shops and different businesses are opening back end of May, so it should be 2 weeks or something. But it's quite fragile yet. It will obviously fully continue to decline, but it's really taking longer than they expected for Montreal, especially. So we have 2 kids, so here it's a full lockdown, all the craziness is like, no, but everything's going great. But the fact that you don't have school, you don't have summer camp, you don't have daycare is a big change.
Man, I can only imagine. Yeah, we don't have kids, and so I've thought a lot about my friends that do have kids and what that's like.
At the same time, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty nice family time, and we're really hanging out together more. And at the same time, I have a few studio work from home to do, and very basically, it's hard to get a quiet house in the middle of the day, whereas in the week, generally, I don't have this problem. I've always thought about soundproofing my studio in the term of people outside of the studio. I don't want them to have too much noise from to them, but now it's the other way around. I'm like, I should maybe think about soundproofing the other way around, or anyway. But no, everything's going great. I'm kidding here. It's going on pretty good. Nice. It's actually, we're kind of lucky because everything's working out great, family wise, and even professionally. We still have a few stuff. We still have some activity going on. I'm lucky to. as it comes to my own situation, I'm quite lucky to have started this whole internet thing early on, because if I'm comparing to all my other friends, local bass players, it's our musicians, it's really, I mean, I still have that as at least
Yeah.
some teaching online, some albums and stuff like this. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's such a long, slow process to build up your internet presence, and you've been doing it for a while, and then obviously the courses and all that kind of thing. But it is really and a lot of actually. Do you have? And I don't know if I have any advice for anybody, but probably a lot of people listening to this haven't built up their presence, and now they're sort of realizing the value of that. And I look at what. I love, and you've been doing this for a long time, but I love the way you put yourself out there artistically with, and especially like whether it's kalimba and bass or whether it's even doing these Facebook lives or like, do you have any advice for people who are just, they haven't established themselves like you have?
I mean, you would probably have a lot of stuff to advise to people. I don't know. I don't know. But the thing I said to myself like 10 years ago, and that I still say to myself, is that will I how do you call that? Assume, will I stand out for what I put online 10 years from now? Stand out for?
Mm-hmm.
Will I still be proud of what I'm uploading 10 years from now? That's the first thing. And second thing, if you're doing that for the money, it will really not work right now, right from the beginning. It's so long before you make any kind of revenue out of that. We can always figure out our own ways to have a little income coming from it. But the gigs are still what pays the bills. But it's nice to see that, it can work out, but it's really, as you said, very long, very, very long. So, not expecting to do any money. Directly from it. Of course, teaching is a way to do it, but the bass audience are people really. It's so small that we're really doing it for the. I'm really more doing it for the artistic involvement.
Yeah, that's a great way to think of it too. I like to think of it as just documenting the journey, and I love it's kind of like it's. If I look back on things I did 10 years ago, I'd like to think I've gotten a lot better than now than I was then. Well, maybe in some ways I am, some ways I'm probably the same. But I just like improving in public, or like having that daily journey and or showing my work is the way I like to think about it. Like I'm doing this, and at the result, here's something, I'm just putting it out in public, and I don't care if I would like people to take what they want from it, but really I'm doing it to grow as a person and as a musician and as an artist and all those things just as much as anything.
Yes, I think, yes, you're right. I think it's definitely absolutely. It's an artistic commitment. It's a form of diffusing the art to the audience. So that's it for me, at least. But of course, at a certain point, you can have a few levers that you can manipulate to. But the main thing is just playing bass in public. In the real world, is still the main. And anyway, it's the most fun part of playing an instrument is doing it with people and in the real world. But the internet is like creating your own little radio of your, not only you, but of your inner mini micro world and what you're working on and the people that inspire you and everything. I really like it. It's really nice.
Well, I've used you as an example when people have asked me about like people, doing interesting things out there or kind of on a path that not so many others are on. And I just love the level at which you've developed your craft on so many different fronts is just really remarkable. I mean, I just keep going back to like what you do with the bow, and I mean, it's just like this whole new world of sound opens up for me when I hear you improvise with the bow. You know, kind of like do the various different kind of slaps and chops and all the different kinds of things you do with, and just the language that you speak. I just think you're one of the people that makes me. I remember when I first heard Adam Ben Ezra play. I love that these are all people that Jeff Chalmers is connected with for Discover Double Bass, but he was another person I was like, whoa, I didn't even think about that. And I like went into the corner and I was playing around with the bass, and I've done the same exact thing when I hear you play too. So I appreciate what you do, and it's and thank you for coming on board for this bass summit that we've got coming up in a month. That's going to be great to have you on for that.
That's a great project. I'm looking forward to see the detailed schedule and everything that's happening. It's really, really great. I mean, very inspiring players and musicians there. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, well, I'm looking for. You're one of the first people I thought of when I was thinking of building. And Barry Green and I are going to be planning the final details of the schedule. The schedule is going to come out tomorrow. People are listening; it'll already be out. But yeah, it's exciting. So, and one of these days we'll get to hang out in person. After this pandemic passes, either Montreal or San Francisco or some other location, it will happen. But this is a good way to do it in the meantime.
Yeah, sure. I don't know what's the next ISB convention, when and where, but we'll try to make it work somehow.
That'd be great. And I am long overdue for a trip to I've never been to Montreal. I'm ashamed to say, but I need to get out and explore more of Canada. My Canadian Sault Ste. Marie and not much else. My Canadian exploration has been pretty limited, so I need to fix that.
No problem, man. It's great out here. It's there's a great. Toronto and Montreal are two cities that really have a very rich music scene. Very different, but very rich. I love going to Ontario and to check. The music scene there is as well very cool. I mean. Montreal is a very nice city to live in, so it's great to be here.
Nice. Olivier, thank you so much for chatting. And folks, we've got his website linked up, his profile in Discover Double Bass, his course, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all the good stuff. Follow him along with him. I'm getting tongue-tied at the end of the day. He's a great person. I really enjoy what he does, and I'm inspired. And I really do need to get to Montreal. That is shameful that I've never been there. So one of these days soon, when travel is a thing again, it's becoming less of a thing here in California. Looks like we might be shutting completely down again here as I record this in late July. We will see. But we're marching onward here on the podcast. Got lots of new people to bring you in the coming weeks and months. And thank you so much for listening. Maybe it's your first episode. Maybe it's your 10th. Maybe it's your 700th or whatever. Regardless, I am so appreciative of you taking the time to listen to this. I love listening to podcasts. That's why I started doing this podcast back in 2007. They are my daily companion, whether I'm cooking or going for a run or working in the garden or whatever it is I'm doing. And I'm just thrilled to know that people are out there listening to this. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it on social media, email it to a friend, join our email newsletter where you can get more info and behind the scenes stuff and more bass community info. You can take care of all of those things at contrabassconversations.com. Contrabass Conversations is produced by Michael Cooper, Steve Hinchy, Trevor Jones, Mitch Mooring, and Krista Copper. And if you're looking for a bass or getting some work done on your bass, Mitch is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and does beautiful work, makes award-winning basses. Learn more at mitchmooring.com. I'm your host, Jason Heath, and we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.